I wasn't actually planning on recording a video today, but then, as the kids would say, stop everything. Things are happening on the internet. Hi everybody, Carla here, and yes, I know that I said that I would upload a review for New Mutants and a review for the last Digimon movie, and I will do that eventually. It's a bit of a complicated issue because I bought a new lamp for recording this. You can see over there on my glasses. I bought a new lamp and it should be a better one, and I need to get a special, I don't know, electrical cable for it that didn't come with the lamp, so I haven't been able to get it yet. I was going to get it this weekend, and I was going to wait until I had the cable on hand and I could actually use the new lamp to record a new video. And then and then the world just sort of threw a wrench at me, and I basically, there are some things that happen that are so big that you kind of have to talk about them right when they happen. So I decided I'm just gonna go ahead and make a video with my old lamp really quickly. Hopefully this won't take too long, but I do have some things I want to get out regarding what I'm sure you've seen in the in the subject of this video over there in the title of the video, is what is happening with Warner Media and theater teams and everything. It's a big deal. Before I go into it though, I do want to make a point that I uploaded a short video, something like 8 minutes or so. It's more of a reaction than a review, really. A reaction to the second My Hero Academia movie, Heroes Rising, which I finally managed to watch, and it's up on as a Patreon exclusive actually, so if you want to check that out, then you have to subscribe to my Patreon. It's on the, I believe it's on the Senpai patron like tier or whatever. I don't know much about Patreon, I'm sure you can tell. But it's on the second tier of exclusivity, I guess. So if you sign up for that, you'll be able to watch it. And I do think I plan on like making really quick, shorter, extra videos that will be Patreon exclusives. So if you don't want to miss anything, that's what you want to do. But let's go back to why we're here today, and that is that today, while I was asleep, because everything exciting happens when I'm asleep, you know, this is what happens in this side of the world apparently. Warner Media, Warner Brothers Pictures, everything, announced that not only have they moved Wonder Woman 84 to a day and date release both on theaters and HBO Max. So they were already doing this for Wonder Woman 84. I was on board with that. That was okay. Like, I know that most theaters in the United States will probably not be open around the time Christmas rolls around, and honestly, a lot of theaters elsewhere in the world probably won't be, so I was worried about that aspect of it. But the thing is, today, out of the blue, out of nowhere, Warner Brothers decided to release like a quick little trailer type thing, announcing that not only are they doing this hybrid thing with Wonder Woman 84, they're actually doing this hybrid thing with their entire 2021 slate of movies. Like, everything. Dude, Mortal Kombat, James Bond, the new James Bond movie, like everything. Everything they were releasing in theaters in 2021 is now coming out day and date on both theaters and HBO Max. And apparently because other studios have been negotiating with theaters about, the theatrical window and reducing it and stuff. And like Universal gave theaters something like 17 days of exclusivity, and then after that, their properties can go to VOD. I don't believe there's any studio that has properly negotiated anything day and date. Like I assume the theaters want some sort of exclusivity to begin with, because that's when they actually make the money. Warner Brothers just decided to throw a wrench in all of that, basically. Like even when Mulan came out for Disney through Disney Plus, yes, it was day and date, but it was supposed to be a one-off, because theaters weren't open yet, so they couldn't really object necessarily. Warner Brothers has just thrown a wrench in that. It's the movie's coming out on December 25th in theaters and HBO Max, and it will be like that for a month, I believe, like the first month, and then after that it will leave HBO Max, so that the theaters have like an exclusivity window for, I don't know if it's like another month or something, before they actually put it up on VOD, like for purchase and stuff. So needless to say, theaters are freaking pissed, and I am sure if you're here, you probably have already seen more than your fair share of like super hot takes from, movie personalities and commentators and stuff, saying how this will be the end of the theatrical experience forever. And yeah, okay, I get it. It's not necessarily a good thing, and I definitely think it's like a really big jerk move in terms of Warner Brothers. Like, theaters are pissed. They did this unilaterally. They didn't even bother negotiating with them. Like, they negotiated the Wonder Woman thing for a long time. And then this is just like out of the blue, apparently. And okay, I get it, but also it's one of those things where I'm not surprised. And if it hadn't been Warner Brothers, it would have been Disney or Universal. Like, this is where things were headed anyway. So this idea that, oh no, this is going to be the absolute death of the theatrical experience, yes, but also it was gonna happen anyway sometime, and this just sort of accelerated it. So I wanna just mention a few points regarding this, because I don't want you to think I'm being like callous or anything. I know that a lot of people work for the theater industry, and of course this is going to be terrible for them. I don't necessarily put that in the theater's shoulders. Like, of course they have to try to get as many movies as they can and stay open for as long as they can in order to make a profit, in order to be able to, pay these people. That's their industry, and if they're not getting any help from the government, then they have to figure out a way. So of course the theater owners are going to be pissed about that, and a lot of people who work for theaters are probably devastated right now. And even people who don't work for theaters, because it's like there's a lot has been made of the theatrical experience, and I get it. I love going to the movie theater. Like, if I had all the money in the world, that's probably what I would do every day. I love watching a movie in the theater. It's an entire experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything. But also, and that is, I don't think the theatrical experience is ever going to go away, but I think it was headed already in a direction that wasn't as widespread as it is today. I think with the rise of streaming services themselves, theaters were going to be something that was only going to happen for blockbusters. I think the mid-level to low-level movie just wasn't going to be profitable in the theater at some point. And that is why I think I was a little bit more optimistic and positive when it came to the rise of streaming services and then taking movies away from theaters, because I think the mid-level budget and the low budget movies were getting shoved aside because the theatrical experience is there, but it's so expensive that blockbusters are just going to take over everything, and the smaller movies are just not going to be able to get screens anymore. So I'm a bit more positive on that side. I think that's where we were headed either way, and I think because of that, because the blockbuster is such a, you know, huge experience per se, I think that's not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, the theater chains may go out, but eventually somebody will open a theater somewhere near you, even if it's a smaller one, and you'll be able to watch your Avengers and your DCEUs over there. You know, it will happen. It just might be a more of a niche thing, you know, like drive-ins used to be before the pandemic. You know, it's kind of a quirky little thing from decades past, and that's sad. Don't get me wrong, I am sad about it. Like I said, I love the theatrical experience. I think watching a movie in the theater is one of the most immersive things, and just being able to react. Like, some of my greatest memories of watching movies in theaters is just reacting and knowing that everybody around you was reacting the same way. Like, if you watch a comedy and everybody's just cracking up, or if you watch an action movie and something really important happens and everybody just like cheers, I think that's awesome. And if that stops happening, I'm gonna miss it for sure. I just also definitely think that the movie theater has become prohibitively expensive for many of us. Like, even in my case, I love theater. I literally, like, when I'm back home, the only thing I go out for, like, I don't go to bars, I don't go to restaurants, I don't go to like clubs or anything. The theater is my thing. So if I want to go out one weekend, that's where I'm going. I'm going to the theater. But it has come to a point where prices are so expensive that I can't just go to the theater any weekend and just choose a movie to watch. I need to, like, every year in December, I make a list of upcoming movies and just write down the ones that I want to watch. And it might be something like 10 or so movies, like maybe once a month. And most of the time, I can't actually afford to see all of them. And I'm not below poverty level or anything, like, I'm comfortable. But I'm a student. I have low income or very little income, basically living off my savings at the moment. And I cannot afford to be going to the movie theater to watch every single movie that catches my eye. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. Like, if you think about it, like, that is why, apart from the pandemic, like, that is the only reason why I considered, like, I even decided to watch Mulan on Disney Plus, for example. It's because, like, I could have gone to the theater. The theaters are open here, or were open at that point. But you know what? Even with the cost of the $30 extra and the cost of the Disney Plus subscription itself, even with that, it was cheaper than me and my brother going to the theater together. Like, if you take into account ticket prices and popcorn and concessions and everything all together, and the time and money to get back and forth, if you take that into account, it was cheaper to just get it on Disney Plus. And it's not the greatest experience, but you know, I make popcorn, I have soda here, I have my brother with me, so it's not quite the same, but I can afford it. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. So I've said this before in other videos, but I do think we were going to get eventually to a point that where, you know, theaters are just exclusively for the big blockbuster movies and everything else just goes to streaming. And that is fine with me, in the sense that, well, yes, I will miss the theatrical experience, I will not miss the crazy, stupid prices, and also I will be able to see more movies. Smaller movies that I wouldn't have gotten a chance to see in a theater, because, again, I made a list of 10 movies that I was going to watch this year, that I could afford to watch this year, and none of the smaller movies that I just come across on Twitter or YouTube or something where I watch a trailer and I'm like, oh, this is nice, I wish I could see that. I would never have seen any of those movies if they were in theaters, because I can't afford it, right? So I end up watching more stuff, and I end up giving smaller stuff a chance. So you get eyeballs on these things. For smaller filmmakers, like mid-level stuff, I think that's a great thing, actually. You get more people to see it. And it's just cheaper. It's cheaper, unfortunately. Like, I'm not going to buy a car if I don't need one. You know? Like, I can't afford it. I'm not going to end up in debt to buy a car if I can just take a bus. Same thing with movies. If I can get it in my home without having to leave, without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money every time, I could watch a lot more movies. So I feel that way, and yes, of course I'm sad this is going to affect theaters. It makes me sad. I don't like to see people losing their jobs. I don't like to see businesses closing. I just think the theater has become one of those things that are just out of the quality that these movies require these days. Theaters, just to stay open, have to charge so much. And I think it's almost becoming a luxury item. And I know that obviously the numbers don't actually follow me on this, because the box office has been increasing, but if you look at the ticket sales, it's actually been either stagnant or going down in many places, and the box office increases just because inflation is so high and prices are going up and up and up, and unfortunately, until that changes, I don't know that there's any other solution. So I think we were going in this direction anyway. I'm not surprised that the pandemic accelerated everything. I do think, however, that Warner pulled a kind of a jerk move, because I would have expected, if things in 2021 didn't go the way everybody plans, and we have vaccines on the horizon, which is good, so maybe we're looking at the end of this pandemic sooner rather than later, which is good. It's not going to be immediate. It's like still a good half to 3/4 of 2021 are going to be lost, because vaccine rollout takes so long and everything, and obviously this isn't going to be normalized in just a month. But I do think Warner Brothers first should have talked to theaters, because if they're doing this, like, are they giving theaters a cut at all? Like, I haven't actually read all the details, but I know that for Wonder Woman they were giving theaters a cut. I hope they're still doing it with this, but they should have definitely informed or negotiated this with theaters to begin with, especially if it's going to be a long-term thing. And second, just the fact that they did it for the whole of 2021. Like, even if somehow 2021 is salvageable, they're still doing this. So, like, of course theaters are pissed out of their minds right now. And they have a right to be, because this is a really big dick move. Let's put it that way. And not only that, it gives all the other studios permission to do the same themselves, you know? Because, like, oh, if Warner, which is one of the biggest studios, isn't going to put their movies in theaters, we can do that too. Like, what's stopping Universal or Disney or, heck, Paramount Pictures or whatever from doing the exact same thing? You know, like, Peacock is a new thing. Why should they, like, not premiere their movies on Peacock to get more people to sign up? You know, and it's definitely accelerating something that I thought was already going to happen, so I'm not as devastated as you will hear most, you know, cinema pundits talking about. Like, people are saying this is the biggest shakeup since the invention of movies or whatever. Like, this is a big deal. But I think it was coming. I just think Warner Media sort of jumped 4 or 5 steps ahead. Like, they just decided, you know what, we can't wait for this to happen organically. We're just gonna do it. We're gonna bite the bullet and we're going to go all in with streaming. Theaters be damned, basically. And that's a dick move. Let's face it, it's a dick move. And I expect that at least a few of the other theater chains are going to follow suit somehow, because I definitely don't see any of the Disney releases for the first few months of 2021 even making it to theaters. So I don't know, like, on the one hand, I think it's better for consumers, because if movies go to streaming services, they will be easier for people to access and they would be cheaper. Let's face it, I'm not sure how their model for big blockbusters can be sustained, so I think they're hoping to still have some level of audience participation in theaters for blockbusters, and I think that will actually stick. Like, I think people, even if streaming becomes more popular, if streaming movies day and date becomes like the norm, I think for big franchise movies and blockbusters, I think you will still get a lot of people going to theaters. So maybe the theater experience will not be as widespread as we have it now, or had it before the pandemic at least, but there will be theaters, and there will be people who will go to theaters to watch these big movies. I just don't think the smaller movies can afford that. And for the smaller movies, it's probably a better deal. You know, like, you're not losing, if you put your average Avengers movie directly on Disney Plus, that's a loss. You're losing money for sure. But if you put smaller movies directly on Disney Plus, you're actually getting more eyes on them, which is good, and more subscriptions probably, which is good. So on that sense, I think it's good for the consumer. I also do wonder though, because HBO Max is only available in the United States at the moment. I will find a way to watch it, don't get me wrong. I will find a way. I'm not going to theaters. Like, even with Wonder Woman 84, I was not going to the theater, I'm sorry. I will find a way to watch it. Somehow I will go through hoops and VPN shenanigans and I will find a way to watch it. I can't subscribe to HBO Max. Somehow I will get it, because I'm not going to the theater until I have a vaccine on my arm. I'm just saying, probably a few weeks after that. But I do wonder what it's going to do to non-US markets, though, because Disney Plus is pretty much in most major markets right now. Like, even Latin America, they just started it over there, which is good. So Disney could do this even when theaters outside the United States are closed, and it would be kind of the same thing. But HBO Max is US only, meaning outside of the US they're only depending on theaters. And I don't know how long the theaters will be open in a lot of these places. Like, I know in like the UK, theaters reopened after their lockdown. I don't know how efficient those lockdowns will have been by the time some of these movies come out. And if we're still having pandemic waves in 2021, some of these movies may not get wide releases outside the US at all. And even then, even if theaters are open per government order, basically, like even if your government allows theaters to be open, that's not a guarantee that people are actually going. And I know that because in the town where I live, there is one theater, and they closed down for a few months after the pandemic started. So like March, April, May they were closed. They started opening in like June, July or something. The government gave them the go ahead. There was a wave in Melbourne, and then Melbourne theaters closed, but everywhere else the theaters were open. So the theater was still functioning. There were no movies for the theater to play, right? And people weren't going to go to the theater to watch movies they didn't care for. You know, again, movies are now an event thing. So you don't just go to the theater, you don't just show up at the theater one day and be like, I think I want to watch something. Those days are gone. And they have been gone for a while. Like, you want to go to the theater to watch a movie, you plan it. It's a plan, it's an event that you put in your calendar, you know? So if you have no event movies coming out, people probably aren't going to the theater. So what happened is that theaters here where I live were open. The one theater was open. It was open for a few months after the first lockdown, and it wasn't profitable at all because people weren't going. Like, even if theaters were open, people weren't going. So now the one theater in my hometown, in my town where I live, is closed indefinitely. So like, even if I wanted to go to the theater, I wouldn't be able to. I would have to like take a bus and travel 40 minutes out of the city where I live in order to go to the nearest theater one town over. And I'm not gonna do that, you know? So like, even in places where theaters are open, that's not a guarantee that people are actually going to the theaters. So a lot of these theaters are going to close eventually. It sucks. It's terrible. I would love for the governments to actually give these theaters money to be able to stay open. Governments are not doing that. They're not. And I wish I could wave a magic wand. I can't. So realistically speaking, even regardless of what the studios choose to do with the movies, theaters may not be able to survive this thing. They probably won't be able to survive this thing, actually, except maybe the big chains, I guess. But like, even mine theater was a chain theater, and it was a franchise theater, and it didn't make it. And that is not on the studios, that is on the pandemic, because the theaters would like for the studios to either release the movies already so they can have something to play, or postpone them so they can have something to play later. But some theaters, a large chunk of theaters, will not survive until later, right? So what's the use in postponing these movies if the theater you're playing them on isn't going to be open to play them? So it's very complicated, and now I don't have a movie theater anymore in my town. Just not one that plays new releases. Like, there's a university theater nearby where they play newish releases, but they play them like a few weeks after they come out, which kind of takes away the event of it all. You know, like, if there's a movie that I missed in theaters originally and I would like to go see it, I go to the university theater. Not right now because still pandemic, I'm not going out until I have a shot on my arm, but I would normally, like in pre-pandemic times. If I had missed a movie, a smaller movie, I would go to the university theater and, you know, go watch it. But, you know, it's a smaller cut of my money. It's cheaper. It's not all going to the studios, and the theater doesn't make much out of it, honestly. So if you want theaters to play current movies that are happening right now and are opening right now, it just doesn't make much sense to keep postponing these movies when theaters won't be able to stay open in order to wait for them. You know, it's very sad. I'm not saying that it's not sad. I'm just saying I think we were headed this way either way. Not just because of the pandemic, but mainly because theaters have become such an expensive proposition already, even before this pandemic started. Like I had to make theater budgets, you know, to know which movies I was going to go see in theaters and which ones I wasn't going to get the chance to see at all until they, you know, made it their way to Netflix or something. So yes, this is sad, and I think it's definitely a total dick move on Warner's part to just do this unilaterally. Like that's the thing that kind of really annoys me, that they didn't even bother negotiating with theaters at all. Like that's just mean, honestly, especially since they were like resting on their laurels after Wonder Woman 84 and stuff, and you know, when they reached that agreement with theaters were like super complimentary of Warner. Like, yeah, they really want to make sure that the theater experience survives, blah blah blah. Nope, not anymore. No. They just changed their mind now. So I do definitely think it's a big move, and I do definitely think that they're doing this looking at their bottom line. Like they literally do not care what happens to theaters at this point, because they just can't afford to hold on to these movies anymore. They can't afford to postpone these movies anymore, and they have to find a way to survive themselves. So they're gonna do this, you know, for them to make HBO Max a thing. So on that hand, I get the anger. I definitely do. And I get the sadness. I don't want theaters to go away. I like theaters. Some of my formative experiences growing up were watching movies in theaters, and I still have so many great memories that I recall from watching movies in theaters, and I don't want that to go away. I don't. And if I get the chance in the future, like even if they do this day and date streaming thing, there are certain movies that I will choose to watch in theaters, you know, the big blockbusters and stuff. But I do think there are positives to this, and I think we would have gotten to this place even if the pandemic hadn't happened. The pandemic just made it happen faster, and it sucks. It really does suck, but I think it's the way of the future, unfortunately. So, I don't know, it's kind of bittersweet, because I keep watching videos about people, commentators talking about this, and everybody's so upset. And I am upset, I'm just also realistic, I think. And I think we would have gotten to this place either way, because theater prices were just going up. It was a thing, and eventually it would have become a luxury item, basically. You know, like cruises and, you know, cars and that kind of thing. Like, if you can't afford it, you find simpler and cheaper ways to get the same thing. You know, you don't buy a car, you use the bus. Great. Same thing with streaming services basically, and I definitely do think this is going to be a game changer for HBO Max. Like, for sure, people will stay subscribed throughout the year now. I probably still won't, because I don't again, I count on one hand the amount of movies that I watch, and if I can unsubscribe for any month, I will. Believe me, I am cheap. I don't have any money. I am a poor student. So if I can unsubscribe, I will. But there are some movies that I will watch for sure on HBO Max if I get the chance, if I figure out a way how to make it work outside the US. But it's, yeah, there are movies that Mortal Kombat, I'm coming for you for sure. Absolutely for sure. I don't know if I would have had the money to go watch Mortal Kombat in theaters, but I totally will watch it on HBO Max. And I will subscribe for that 1 month, which is, you know, what I've done with Disney Plus too. Like, I don't subscribe to Disney Plus continuously. I just subscribe when there's something that I want to watch for 1 month and then unsubscribe again. And I think streaming services have sort of come to that realization too. Like, unless they're like Netflix, which is spending billions and billions of dollars on original content just to keep people subscribed. If you have these big streaming services that aren't doing that, like Disney is not sinking billions and billions of dollars into their Disney Plus content. They're sinking those dollars into theatrical content because that's what makes them the more money. But now if they shift that, if they do like a Netflix thing and they just keep continuously putting out theatrical level content, people would either stick to a subscription or just subscribe more often. You know, like I will definitely subscribe to HBO more than I would have in the past. Like I was thinking of subscribing to Wonder Woman for 1 month and then dropping it. If something else comes out in January or February, I might just stick with it, you know, and for a couple of months at least. Probably not the whole year, but you know, I wouldn't mind anymore because now you're giving me the content that I want to see. So yeah, I think it's sad and it's kind of bittersweet, but I don't think it's all bad necessarily, and I think we were going to go this way anyway, and people just were kind of refusing to see it, but it was coming, and now it just seems like it's here, and it's a shock for a lot of people, but for me it's like I knew this is where we were headed, and I had kind of made my peace with it a long time ago. And I will still go through theaters whenever I can to support them. It sucks that so many people are going to end up losing their jobs. It sucks that we won't have a cheap theatrical experience that we can all experience necessarily, and it might become a niche thing, it might become a luxury thing. But I do think theaters are always going to be there in some shape or form. Maybe not like we have them now, but there will always be one. You know, just like boutiques aren't dead just because Amazon happened. You know, they're smaller for sure, but they're not gone. So yeah, I think it's bittersweet, and although you might be watching or listening to many hot takes about this of people that are just absolutely enraged that Warner Media is killing the theatrical experience forever. Also put yourselves in the shoes of the consumer. You know, maybe this is better for them. Maybe this is better for filmmakers that otherwise wouldn't have gotten the attention in theaters that they might from a streaming service. So, you know, while a lot of this is sad, and I am sad that theaters are probably going to go the way of the dodo soon, I also think change is something that happens, and we can't stop it, you know? Radio was a big thing once. Now it's not. It's technology advancing, and we can't do much to stop it, but it is what it is. So yeah, maybe I'll come back to this if any other studios sort of make any similar announcements in the future. I do think Warner Media are jerks. Like, they're total jerks, let's face it. They just strong-armed everybody in this scenario, and I'm surprised that it was them and not like Disney. But yeah, if other studios come up, maybe I'll revisit this. Definitely seems like we're seeing the beginning of a massive shift. So I don't know, you guys let me know what you think about this. Will you still be going to theaters once the pandemic is over? Do you prefer just staying at home, you know, watch your movies at home? It's not the greatest experience ever, but it's cheaper. I don't know, tell me what you think. As usual, any questions you have, I might actually be able to respond on Patreon exclusives, so please drop any comments you have about this topic, about any topic that you've ever heard me talk about myself, my life, anything. I'm up to, you know, answering your questions on Patreon, so do that. And in the meantime, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always happy to see people liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. It really does help me a lot with YouTube algorithms, which are to deal with. So just be sure to go ahead and do that. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words, and on Tumblr at girlsareweird with hyphens between the words. You can find a Facebook page for this blog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia, and be sure to visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com, which has now become my professional website, but you can also look up FreakingNarnia.com/vlog, that's VLOG, and all my videos are up there. In case you missed any, if you want to check it out, just go, everything is up there, so just go ahead and visit. Also remember that I have a Redbubble page where I make art based on my favorite quotes from my favorite fandoms, and then you can use that art to print on different kinds of merchandise, such as t-shirts, computer covers, coffee cups, that kind of stuff. It's all in there, so be sure to visit and maybe purchase something if you're in the mood. It really does help me a lot. Again, I have a Patreon, so be sure to subscribe if you'd like some exclusive content over there, and also all these episodes in podcast form go up to my Patreon on the very same day that they go up on YouTube. So if podcasts are more your thing, since we're talking about radio and everything, if podcasts are more your thing, then what you want to do is subscribe to my Patreon, and you'll see all the episodes over there. And yeah, I think that's it for me today. I will be back as soon as I get that freaking cable for my new recording lamp. I will be back with a New Mutants and a Digimon Last Evolution Kizuna review, both of them. So stay tuned for that. And of course, once Wonder Woman comes out, hopefully I will be able to review it if I can manage to freaking be able to watch it on HBO Max. But yeah, that's it for me today. I will see you guys next time with another video from all the way in freaking Narnia. Bye bye. I wasn't going to record this video, but then, as the kids would say, I don't know much about Patreon. I'm for everything. Also remember that I have a Redbubble stuff